I was a weird, skinny little kid. I had headgear and neck gear, and every morning my mom would pack us lunch in a little plastic case with dumplings, xiaolongbao, wontons, or whatever it may be. And then by lunch, it would smell the whole classroom up, and I would be made fun of for sure. So eventually, I would say, "Thank you, Mom." I would eat a couple before I got to school, and then I would like dump the dumplings into the bushes before I got to school every day. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do at school to just stay low and not be noticed. So one day I was so hungry and I really wanted it. And maybe it didn't smell as much as I thought before, so I stuffed it in my backpack really deep with my homework and my binders on top of it, so it would sort of like create this biosphere that the smell could not escape. And at lunchtime, I like go into the corner and I make sure everyone's playing. I peel it open, and my best friend Jimmy Pickett comes over with our other friend Jon M, and they're like, "What do you got there? What do you got there?" And they smell it, and I'm like, "Oh no, here it goes." And my best friends are gonna like think I'm so weird. But they were like, "That looks awesome, can we have one?" And so like, they grabbed one and they ate it, and they ate the whole thing, and they loved it. And all that fear went away. But of course, I was bummed because then I had nothing to eat. That's when it shifted, where I was like, "Mom, can you make double?" And I would have their side and my side. I actually made a short film about that experience in college. Probably the only other time other than Crazy Rich Asians that I make a movie about being Asian was this experience.
I'm fourth generation Japanese American. When World War II hit, 100,000 Japanese Americans were all sent into de-internment camps all around the country. And my grandmother, when she was 16 years old, her family was sent to Heart Mountain, a very desolate, dry corner of Wyoming. After the war was over, everyone was left with basically $25 and a bus ticket. Everything that they had was destroyed or given away. So my grandmother, she moved with my grandfather to Billings, Montana, and they were the only Japanese American family in all of Montana. They owned this little tiny cafe, and they all ran it together. So my grandmother, who was originally from the small town farmer's family, had to now all of a sudden know how to become a waitress and run this cafe. So she had this cute little waitress outfit, and she would run around and serve all of the soldiers that would come on their lunch break. They would kind of take these traditional Japanese recipes from their culture and turn them upside down and make like hamburgers, but they'd put like umeboshi, which is Japanese pickled plum, on top of that over rice. And then they would make sandwiches with Spam inside them, and they would make panko chicken, kind of like our version of fried chicken. Because my grandmother helped raise me Monday through Fridays, I had all of these Japanese American inspired dishes that were influenced by the war, essentially. Still to this day, we eat them, and it's like comfort food to me.
I went to a school that was mainly white. I was never bullied because I roll with this other Filipino kid who was held back 2 years, so he was 13 when we were 11. So I was never embarrassed about the Chinese food that my mom put in my lunch at school. And then in fact, some of the other white kids would see like the snacks that I had, like the haw flakes, or the batango, which is like a dim sum type of dessert cake, and or the baked tasu bao, like stuff like that they'd never seen before, and they wanted to try it. So I'd rip off a piece for them, and then they liked it. So they were really interested in the Chinese food that I got, and then I was really interested in like the Twinkies and Ho-Hos that my mom would never buy, right? Then it was all about trading. I would say, "I'll trade you 3 of these packs of Haw Flakes for 1 thing of Twinkie." And then that would be like a kind of weekly thing, or a couple times a week we would do that. And so then the kids around me got to taste like Chinese snacks, and I got to try out all the snacks my parents wouldn't buy for me. Yeah, I had a real reputation of like being a business-minded person.
My mom's side of the family has always been really food-based. My mom's been working in the kitchen since she was 8 years old. My grandparents both came from Taiwan, and they opened a Chinese restaurant, my grandmother and my grandma. She was the first person who ever taught me to cook, so she always made these really Asian meals, like with dumplings and like noodles that were really, really good. And so when I first started cooking, she was the one next to me. So I'd always cook like my favorite foods, like peanut butter noodles, something that I ate all the time. Throughout the years, I've cooked a lot, and so I have a ton of burns. Back when I was younger, my grandma was always watching over us. She lived in the house, and she was the only one there. So my dad never wanted me to use the stove without him or mom's supervision. So when I cooked with my ma, it was kind of like under the table and kind of sneaky. And so when I first got burned, I remember what happened. It was a soup. I think I was like tasting it, but with a spoon. And I put my hand too deep and I burned my wrist on the pot. And so I ripped it up and I had like a big welt across there. And then that's when I kind of got found out by my dad, because he came home and it was a big mess. I also have one on my foot that I got from cooking bacon. The pan broke, and so I burned my hand on the handle and then I dropped it, and the oil splattered all over my foot, and it was awful. I got it from like cooking tacos and fajitas. I flipped it over like this, and I just there's actually still a scar that's been here for 2 years. I had a bunch of my fingers just from like grabbing stuff that shouldn't be grabbed. I don't know how I kept on cooking, because I'm not very careful.